And when we do these journeys, these guided visualizations, some people are very visual, and I feel like it can be hard to be the person that's like, I don't know. I don't know what I saw. I felt some things, and to like honor that you're receiving this message and the way that you're supposed to receive it, and it's absolutely perfect. And like if you're feeling things, or especially if you're knowing, you just know, it's something that you have to drop into a relationship of trust with. And so to continue that, cultivate that relationship with yourself, that that you can validate what you're receiving, that you know it's not in your head, because it's just it's where you feel it. You feel it as a deeper knowing. You don't feel it as like kind of a whim.
Welcome to the Wholesome Healing Collective.
Join us on our podcast for a journey into the hearts of healers from all walks of life, diving deep as we explore meaningful conversations that have the power to inspire, empower, and share life-changing wisdom.
Through this community, we hope to create a welcoming environment where our listeners leave feeling nurtured and uplifted. We are so delighted you are here. My name is Alyssa.
And I'm Renee. Grab a drink, get cozy, and let's dive in.
Welcome back to another episode of the Wholesome Healing Collective podcast. We are so honored to have Jillian Ribbons here today. She is a lightworker and Akashic record reader practitioner that blends her unique perspective of emotional alchemy through holographic sound healing with acupuncture and osteopathic principles to help spiritual and healer entrepreneurs to connect with their highest timelines so they can manifest an abundant flow of bliss. Such a beautiful bio, and we are so honored to have you here today, Jillian.
Thank you. It's so beautiful to join you in this space.
Yeah, and to kick us off, we'd love to ask you what your favorite self-care practice is.
I love that question. So my favorite self-care practice is when I wake up in the morning, I like to try and tap into that liminal space of you're not quite awake and you're not quite asleep still. And so I like to tap into that space by connecting with inner aspects of myself, asking like, how is my inner child feeling today? Maybe what she would like, if I have some free time in the morning, what she would like to do. How would she like to spend that time, or what does she want for breakfast or for tea? Asking, my mental body, if my mental body needs clearing or support. My emotional body, I might like visualize this, I might visualize my emotional body by the water, and just giving her some support. I've also been exploring with like talking to my cells, and feeling into if my cells have a message for me, or how I can like feed them in a way, like to feel like my cells are being nourished. And so if you just imagine like there's a butterfly on your collarbone or on your hand, and you just imagine that lightness of that butterfly, that like light touch there, and you just imagine that all of those cells there are like waking up to something, to some energy. And if you can even amplify that and deepen that to like more parts of your body and just let that ripple, that's a incredibly, it's been nourishing me in a way where I feel like I don't need to eat as much if I feel super nourished by my cells.
Wow. That is so fascinating. I love the checklist of things that you go through and you're like, how is this? How is this? How is this? It's so magical.
Yeah, and it's not something to be super strict about. Like, it's just like how can I softly enter this day and just give myself that acknowledgement? I used to have a little bit more trouble sleeping, and it was really nice if I didn't sleep very well, if I just gave myself like maybe half an hour or 20 minutes just to like check in, drop in, and just kind of move more into that liminal dreamy space. If I had dreams, maybe just kind of feeling into what they were, what they resonated within me. And that just helped me feel that much more recharged.
That's so great. I love that you check in with your inner child too. And I feel like it's so easy when we wake up to let our minds go to all the things that we need to do and get prepared for and tackle. And so often those are things for people outside of us. And
Mhm.
how beautiful is that to start with going inward and checking in with what our little preschool inside needs.
Yeah. Well, there's some cultures that are animistic. They believe, that mountains are spirits, that trees are spirit. I mean, I believe that, but especially like in the Quechua around Ecuador, they utilize their dream space to determine how they want to go about their day. And so, I'm
Mm.
sure many people listening are like spiritual entrepreneur types, and they're creating, and so for me, when I create, if it comes from a place of like still being plugged into that liminal, it's way better. Like I used to be a little bit better about this, but it just has to be something that's scheduled on the days when I have the availability to do this, to wake up, go outside, get some sunshine, take a walk, journal, or just start writing and work on the projects that are coming through, and the different things, because when we do get caught up in like what our mind wants us to do, what social media or messages that we received or emails, like we get caught in that hamster wheel, and it's hard to go back and to drop into like a completely blank space of creativity. So I
Yeah.
love mornings for that reason, and my inner child does get frustrated if I don't get a chance to like engage in that activity, if it's just like, okay, we gotta go.
Yeah. It's like, wait, what about me?
Yeah. That was my favorite thing to say as a child, actually.
Oh,
Yeah, because I had siblings, and there's always like a lot going on. And I was like, oh, that's really telling. Like, I mean, inner child is, she's now in a place where for me, she's getting a lot of that support, a lot of that validation, and like, what do
oh.
you want to do today?
Mm.
I'm curious, for those that have maybe they don't have that relationship developed yet with their inner child and haven't really explored that landscape of parts and pieces that are inside of us. How did that journey begin for you in developing that inner dialogue and that inner relationship?
I started kind of working with that more as part of my journey with the Akashic Records. And that was one of the exercises that we were doing, is like just checking in with the various bodies and the various parts and the aspects of us. And I find that's really important. I think a lot of people think of Akashic Records as like, oh, these crazy past life regressions and these like old stories, and it can be anything that you want to tap into. Like sometimes it's color frequencies, sometimes it's sound, it sounds like color vibration. And sometimes there's like a story that you need to work through. But oftentimes, like I found this through before I started this work, which kind of taught me to tap into my channel and just open that channel and see what was there. I was working with clients doing acupuncture, and I noticed that, there's energy and it's not in the body, because I felt this, I guess it's clairvoyance of where do I feel energy in the body, where is it going, and what meridians do I need to work with. And like suddenly it was like, oh, there's somebody has energy in their head or outside of their head in the field or somewhere else in the field. And I was like, that's interesting. Like, what do I do about that? So I started to experiment with like singing bowls, and then I got a set of tuning forks, and I read the book, Tuning the Human Biofield by Eileen Day McCusick. And I was like looking at like how people have unprocessed emotions throughout their life that they carry with them. And so I started to get these downloads of, this person has something that's unresolved from this age.
Mm.
And instead of like, there's a way of, you can calculate, how far out in the field it is. And maybe it will tell you if it's this life, or maybe it'll tell you if it's another life, or if it's an ancestral thing. And I started to just kind of receive some of that like really easily. And so I think I think that the numbers is something that maybe it's a language that I'm not really mathematic, which is funny, but it's a way that I'm communicated with by my guides. Like, oh, this person has been dealing with this thing at this age, or there's some numerology and some data that's available to them in there about those numbers. I think numbers are important to people. I think people they receive stories, and they'll hold the stories in their body, in their fascia, or in their meridian centers, and that's something that it can be validating for people to like to go back and not to necessarily live in the past, but to invite that aspect of themselves to come back and to participate with them in this experience that we're having right now.
I love that. I haven't really heard that approach with working with ancestral or parts of us from the past and inviting them to come forward. And I love that like invitation of collaboration, like we're not trying to just dissolve it or release it or cut the cord and call it a day. We're inviting them to come in and say, like, what do you need? How do we move forward together?
Yeah,
And
it's like
yeah.
let's have tea together. Like, and
Yeah.
there's aspects of people, like people bring up this all the time. They're like, oh, this like inner critic. And I was like, did you name them? Do they have a name? Like, did you invite them to have a voice? Because if you're just telling them to shut up, like they're gonna want to get louder. But once they feel acknowledged and heard, that's when you can love them to death. And eventually that's not going to be part of your experience, or when it is, you're like, hey, we need to have a talk. Like, I need to acknowledge that you're here now again. And thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing, your opinions with me, because these are parts of us. Like, this is how we're treating parts of us. That's wild.
Yeah, and even those parts of us that were like, oh man, the critic again, it's like, well, they're really trying to protect you from something. And so how
Yeah.
do we honor and acknowledge the work that they're doing? Because they are trying to help us, even though it doesn't
Hmm.
feel like help in the moment sometimes.
And give them a job.
Yeah, Alyssa and I have done that a lot. Like, how can we reassign this protector to something else? Like, we're not firing you. We just want you to do something a little different. Like, can we just change the approach of protection here?
Yeah, and that totally works. Like, I have talked to my inner aspects and given them assignments like, okay, mental body, okay, emotional body. I want you to go out, and I'm busy right now. I'm working with somebody. I want you to go out and journal about the thing that's upsetting you, and write a list of pros and cons, and maybe wrestle on the floor, or maybe cry and scream into a pillow. And that's usually really helpful to like that I'm acknowledging, like, I see you, and I know that you're having this like struggle, but for right now, I need you to do this, and we can work on it together, see what you come up with. And also with the ego, that's a major intention for doing spiritual work, is like ask the ego to take notes for you, to show up and participate, but just for educational purposes, just to understand what's going on. And having a job for the ego is super important. The ego is just, it's like a dog that's barking. When a dog's barking at you, you're like, you're doing your job, you're trying to be a protector. And I haven't figured this out with my partner's dog, but it just yeah, get you to like participate in your role just a little bit differently.
Wow, such a
Yeah.
powerful shift, giving them roles, giving them
Mhm.
jobs to do. I love the journaling aspect, asking your emotional body to journal.
Mhm.
It's really
Yeah.
cool.
I would love to hear more about Akashic Records. Is there anything that
Yeah.
feels like alive that you want to share on that topic?
alive, like just feels vibrant, feels like it's
Yeah, or anything that, I don't know, is like burning to come through you on that topic.
it's just a really, so it's so interesting when people are like, I don't know how much your listeners know about the Akashic record, so maybe I should just start from the beginning of like what it is.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be cool because I'm
It is a
sure,
topic.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
think there's like you mentioned, like misconceptions out there on what it is, what you're accessing,
Mm-hmm.
and all of that. I've had a couple readings that have been very powerful, very insightful, and yeah, I would love to like dispel some of maybe some of the misconceptions out there.
Yeah, so it is a topic that people are like really intrigued by, but they don't know why. And it's like, I'm sure that it's something that's been used, well, it has been something that's been used in mystery schools throughout time, but that maybe some of us were persecuted for, or maybe like it's something that on some level we remember co-creating with and having this experience with for a very long time. And it is like what they say is the book of life, which is from the Kabbalah. There's many overlaps between spiritual traditions. And this is a record that exists for everyone and everything, every soul that's been incarnated, every spirit, every any object also has an Akashic records, a place, like an event, like this event has a records on it. And so interesting, being able to, and many people channel, actually everyone channels, let's be real, everyone channels. Channeling is just becoming an open vessel for creativity. It's like a really beautiful way that people express themselves, whether it's a guitar solo, whether it's poetry, whether it's art. And so yeah, it is a way that you can tap into your channel in a way that you're asking for the highest good, the connection to the Archangel Metatron is I believe that, like one of the keepers of the Akashic records. And he was incarnated as human form, like one of the few archangels that became an angel. So he understands the human experience, and that's why he's very involved in like those invocations that we use. And and I'm sure many people are in that space and time, and they don't actually know that they're in that space and time. So it is like a way of connecting to your guides, your teachers, your masters. It's a way I can help to connect with the clients, teachers, and guides. A misconception about it is that like the people that are reading the records, they just read the records and then you are, there to kind of witness what they find in your records. But the records are like completely interactive, and it's not like, it's not necessarily like a library. It's like a choose your own adventure. So like if when I work with a client, we can work with their records. We can work with the records of their business if they have maybe business blocks they want to work with. But like when we work with the records, I bring them into a state of receiving as well. And so in a way, we're both receiving information and we're like matching each other with the information that we receive. And they're receiving messages, I'm receiving messages. Depending on what how a person intuitively receives information, it can be a little bit different. Some people are visual, some people are auditory, some people are sentient. And so we just work with the way that they receive the information the best. And I receive information as well. And so I can ask questions and I can kind of go a little bit deeper if we need to get to the bottom of like a story. It's very important sometimes for people with the story. But the transformation that happens, I don't believe that things actually stay in the records if it was something that really needed to be cleared and it's deeply cleared. Maybe there are things that we continuously revisit in the records. I use it for, channeling to receive if I'm working with clients, but they're not necessarily a Akashic session, I will work with my guides to receive what I need to receive for the benefit of that section. And so that's one way that I use it that's been amazingly helpful, and just receiving kind of downloads through that process. And another way that I use it is for writing, for like channeling and receiving. If I have a project, I'm like, what is the title of the project that I'm working on? And like I go from there and I just receive what I need to receive about it. Another way that I've been using it that was really interesting is I don't know when this will come out, but I've been one of my like side projects is I'm writing like a novel, like a true and science fiction novel kind of at the same time, about my journey through healing processes, through Akashic records, through just being incredibly sensitive, and through receiving like, you know, other lifetimes and off-planet lifetimes, and the stories and the things that have occurred during that, and kind of using the records to uncover some of that, and maybe even embellish on some of that for the purposes of like the story. And because you cannot make this stuff up, there's some incredibly amazing things that get uncovered through this kind of work. And it's just like, yeah, I just things that I could never imagined. And my first Akashic Records practitioner, I'm like, if she's making this up, like she deserves an Oscar. Like I don't even know. It's just so incredible. So yeah, is there anything else that?
No, that was great. I love all of that. And I can't wait for that book.
Yeah, super
What a fun
fun.
idea.
I have to, I definitely had some things come through recently that will be a good thing to keep writing. But the thing with the book is life keeps going, so you never know. The journey's never over. It's just like to be continued. And I'm sure that you guys feel this way about projects too. Sometimes it's like, well, there's this other project, and sometimes in order to finish a project, you have to start a new project.
Mm. Yeah, they all feed into each other.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank
Alyssa,
you for
I feel like
sharing.
you've got something burning on you.
I know, but I just keep smiling. This is such a beautiful conversation. And I know our audience is going to appreciate that rundown of the Akashic records. So you said that you are highly sensitive. Is that kind of where your journey started? We always love talking about the origin stories.
Like pre-birth. Pre-birth, or I do some work that I'm muscle testing. Is it this lifetime? Is it ancestral? Is it past life? Is it pre-birth? Yeah, like from what I can remember, I think I just grew up with a brother, a sister. They're just always like loud. I had to find my voice in a very interesting way. I'm a type 3 life path. So I'm like a communicator, like a musician, like somebody who likes to share and connect and network, and I'm very sociable. And so I think that some of that started then with my journey with like familial dynamics, and feeling like I actually was told that I became like really witty at a young age, because that was the only way to shut everybody up, was like, like you only have like 2 seconds to say something, like. And you know, my sister is just very sociable person, a very social for, she studied engineering in college, and then she became like a systems, a data person after that, after business school, and she's now in the New York area. My brother is a attorney for the DA. He has a very strong and powerful voice. And I just realized, I went to my brother's wedding, and I was like just observing this dynamic, this family dynamic. And I was like, wow, I really chose my body, and I chose this journey to find my voice, and to find a way to speak or sing in a way that draws people in instead of like a way that repels people or that needs to compete with my environment. So I think that was a lot of my sensitivity was growing up. I'm still struggling a little bit with food sensitivities, but I'm working through a lot of it, and I'm able to enjoy a lot more than I used to be. Like I definitely had a period of time where I was like, I had a list of foods that I could eat, like a short list, and it was a process of, you know, detoxification of my physical body wasn't the thing that was supposed to happen first. Like when I worked with the physical part with herbs and trying to clear things, it was clear that I needed to like reset some deeper traumas in my nervous system from like past relationship and just like familial relations and ancestral. And so that is kind of when I started to take a deeper dive into like the Akashic records, into familial dynamics and working with the inner aspects of ourselves, and how to clear things that really are not necessarily, they're our responsibility to clear, obviously, but they're not necessarily our responsibility because they happened in the collective. And there's a lot of crazy stuff that's happening in the collective that we you know, feel called and need to work with, but it's not, it's nobody's fault, you know, that they had an ancestor and they had some trauma, and it just kind of feeds on each other. And so instead of just keeping, you know, the world keeps spinning the way it's spinning, like we need to like just take ownership for what we have in our vessel, which is an amazing, incredible amount of information and DNA and like star seed DNA, who knows, that goes back for many lifetimes of data that we can work to clear and unravel.
Yes. Yeah, we so often think that all of our information is in this 2% of this vessel that lives in our skull. And really, it's like we have this plethora of wisdom that is in all of
Mhm.
ourselves if we
Mhm.
take and practice that tapping in.
Mhm. And I've heard that I mean, obviously, every microbe, every organism that is part of your body, which is more than the part of your body that is technically you, whatever that means, has a energy field. And so if you think about our torus that extends more than 6 feet out in every direction from our body, like we also have the collective toroid of all of the beings that are around us. And you know, not to mention our guides that are part of our field. And so, yeah, the way that we receive information, I don't know that we're 100% sure what that is. I think that there's some energetic stuff happening.
Yeah.
Mhm. My daughter keeps talking about how our brains are only like this big. I don't know, they must be doing something at school. And
Uh-huh.
she's like, how could I store all that information in the size of that brain? And I was like, what if it's not in there? So it's so funny, just like planting those seeds with children and like expanding that consciousness outside of just the capacity of the brain.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Well, the heart sends more information to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. So it
Mm-hmm.
must be in charge.
Yeah. I love the idea of each of our components having that energy field and playing with the idea of creating resonance with all of that, you know, like, and I mean, we hear the heart brain coherence term out there a lot these days. Um, especially for anyone that follows like Joe Dispenza and the work that he does with like Heart Math Institute, and how amazing it is to be able to link the brain and the heart in a frequency that is coherent. But then it's like, well, what about our liver? What about our gut? What about are, these other parts of us that all have their own energy fields, and like you mentioned, that collective energy. How do we get to that place of coherence? And I think, maybe that's like the like secretly the secret tap into that connectedness, right? Like when we get to that point of coherence with all the frequency, maybe that's when we realize it's all one frequency, that we're all connected on. I don't know. That's kind of a
Right, like
rambling that just came through.
the fractals that it's like the rainbow when light shines on something, that the fractals come out of the rainbow, but like the fractals really know that they're just part of the same one white light.
Yeah.
And when we like focus on our chakras are rainbow. We put them all together, the rainbow color, but when they spin at the frequency that they spin, then they all become white light. And so we are just this like purity of white light that's expressed in color, but ultimately at the end of the day, we are that light.
That's
And
a
that's like,
great way to put it.
yeah, a good thing for us to remember when we're going through our day and somebody frustrates us, and it's like, you're really just showing me, me. You're really just expressing, you're just the expression of duality, showing me the other side of things and the other aspects, even though we come from the same like divine source energy.
Totally. I love that. I feel like we could go on a whole rabbit hole with that topic, but
yeah, it's super beautiful.
So you have a podcast coming out and talking
Yes.
about liminal frequency. So the same energetic stuff we've kind of been talking about, but do you want to share anything about that podcast?
Oh, it's just super fun. I've just been excited about like having these conversations and being able to share the conversations with people who maybe don't have conversations like this every day. Maybe I feel like I have some clients where like I'm their gateway to like they don't talk to other people about this kind of stuff, and they're like, whoa, like I don't really understand it, but I'm in. And it's been really fun. Like the first episode, I talked to this woman that lives in Ecuador, and she's a plant medicine facilitator. Her partner was been trained for his whole life working with ayahuasca and wachuma, and just the beautiful things that they experience and they see and what comes in on that level of healing. Um, I talked to a couple of colleagues in my Akashic Records classes, and that was really fun, like just seeing the different stories and the different facets and sides of how you can dive into that world. I have somebody on the show that's a EMF specialist, and so we're talking all about frequencies and how we are frequency, but we have to sometimes we have to clean up our frequency to allow our frequency to fully thrive without the interference of something that can be harmful, just depending on where we are in our healing journey. And yeah, and it's been really fun. I've been using my deck of oracle cards and like finding a reading for the session, and it just really speaks to a lot of beautiful things that come up. And so it's just been a fun way to like play and be intuitive. And yeah, tap into that like part of us that's like really subtle, and sometimes it's so subtle that we completely miss it, but the subtleties is what really brings us towards like this deeper healing. Because I think in the future people will just be healing, like we have a community and we're supportive of each other, but like maybe we have these big sound bowl ceremonies and we can all drop in and go to the places that we need to and clear what we need to clear, and then we'll come out of it. And we don't necessarily need to go to doctors or go to holistic practitioners unless we're like that far out of balance. but that always moving ourselves back into equilibrium with the power of our conscious and subconscious mind.
That's the healing we need.
Yes.
Yeah. So powerful. We all have the capacity to heal ourselves. We really just need the time and the space and the safety to do it.
Yeah, yeah, and the empowerment that, like, yes, like you are correct. Like, you have the validation to know that what you're feeling is real. Like, you're not making it up. It's not in your head, which is a lot of what doctors do. And just say, like, you actually have everything in your body. You are the medicine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our mentor says you are the drug, and I think it's like the play on the word, like you are the medicine, but she's a breathwork teacher, so you
Yes.
can get high off your own supply. So it's kind of like a pun, I think.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Mm. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many rabbit holes, right, that we could get into. But just like people listening and stuff, like honoring that voice that you have, that inner voice. And often we get into, like, we had a sound circle this past weekend. It was really, really fun and really powerful. We talked about, like, what came up for me that I had no idea would come up was, like, the first tragedy is our separation from the mother, right, in the womb. And now on this planet, we have become very separated from the mother. Like, the idea of this group workshop was to connect with the Pachamama and return to her. And when we do these journeys, these guided visualizations, some people are very visual, and I feel like it could be hard to be the person that's like, I don't know what I saw. I felt some things, and to, like, honor that you're receiving this message and the way that you're supposed to receive it, and it's absolutely perfect. And, like, if you're feeling things, or especially if you're knowing, you just know, it's something that you have to drop into a relationship of trust with. And so to continue that, cultivate that relationship with yourself, that you can validate what you're receiving, that you know it's not in your head, because it's just it's where you feel it. You feel it as a deeper knowing. You don't feel it as like kind of a whim.
That's a wonderful note to leave our listeners with.
Yes.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And where can our listeners find you?
I have an Instagram page, Sacred Flow Healing Arts. I don't know when this will come out, but I will have my website. My website, I can leave that in the description with you guys, and then they can find links to my podcast there and links of how people can work with me.
Amazing. Yeah. I love the name of your Instagram. That sounds so beautiful.
Sacred Flow. I love
Yeah, that's my new branding is like
Ooh.
Sacred Flow, like just honoring that feminine wisdom that we all have. And feels like a little palpable shift for me to move from working with people as, like, I need you to fix my back, which is, like, transformed into people, like, becoming part of this beautiful co-creation with me. And I think that's, like, it's 10 times more powerful when you're like, you know, you're a part of it. Like, you're definitely a part of it.
Yeah.
You're the most important part of it. Like, we couldn't do this work without you, right? Like,
Yeah. Ooh. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
perfect.
Okay. Amazing. So thank you so much for watching this episode today. So honored to have Jillian join us, and we hope that you have a beautiful rest of the day, and we'll see you again next time.